Record to the cloud. We're on. Glenn Speakman, how
Cool.
you doing today?
Yeah, good man. Feels weird hearing someone on X use my surname. I think that's the first time it's ever happened.
Yeah, I mean, do you keep it anonymous on purpose? Like, do you want to try to not have people know your name?
It's not that I don't want to have my name, it's just not a very it doesn't seem to me like a very brandable name. Like you have like Dan Co, Kieran Drew and all these different names, and then like I don't know, Glenn Speakman. It just sounds like one of those surnames where I'm better off just being Glenn because there's not many other Glens either. So but maybe I'll bring it in. So
It is interesting because I actually do feel like Speakman could be a really cool pen name where like it almost sounds like it could be made up in a way. Like I know a lot of the bigger creators, they actually like their names they go by on Twitter are
yeah,
not their real names, which I just
yeah.
found out like somewhat recently, and that kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Yeah, it's maybe I will bring it. Might poll. I'll do a poll and see if what people think about it. But
I'd be interested to
at
see.
least.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about this Black Friday launch. I know you guys were going pretty hard with the marketing, pretty hard with building out this huge bundle. So how did that go for you guys?
It was it went pretty good. I think we did like 6.5K net, 9K gross. Like not a huge win, but yeah, pretty happy with it. It's nice. It's good to see. Like I wasn't super happy with the landing page either. So when people are still buying after having a copywriter say this landing page isn't very good, then that's a positive to me because if I make the page better, then surely sales will go up, right?
Yeah. And something I noticed, I just did my first official launch Black Friday, and like
Oh, nice.
there's all this momentum building up to it. It's all this work. And then it kind of happens. And then
Mm.
it's like this dead period. And I felt like for the past couple days, I've been trying to get momentum back going because there was so much that was going into that. So did you feel any of that like post-launch depression or like post-launch loss of energy? And how are you rebuilding it afterwards?
Well, we milked it Thursday through to Cyber Monday. So technically today is like it ended this morning, technically, like 5 a.m. ET. So I don't know, no post launch. I mean, we've done a few big launches in the last 3, 4 months. So I'm kind of just used to the launch cycle at this point, I think. But yeah, there's always a little bit of, I think just give yourself a couple of days off and chill a bit afterwards. So how did yours go? Was it, I saw you gave away that course that looked really good a couple of weeks ago. Was it something different?
Yeah, so it was kind of off the back end of that. So the free course was very performance based, productivity, focus, flow state, all that. The cohort is much more like how do we integrate this into
Mm.
building your personal brand in the creator economy,
Okay,
also
brilliant.
with a big performance element to it. But I basically got that playbook from, I mean, first probably Hormozy, second Justin Scott, where it's like give away all the information you have for
Yeah,
free, sell the implementation, and it seems like it's doing well so far. Like this is my first run at any of this stuff. So it's all trial
brilliant.
and error. It's all reps. So it's a lot of fun. But I know
It's awesome.
Hormozy's been a pretty big influence for you. I've seen a lot of his stuff in your content. So who are some of these like business tycoons or maybe influencers, creators that you look up to at this point in your journey or that you've looked up to when you got into the game at first?
Yeah, like I think like everyone, I got the limited edition hat and the 3 books that I don't need and that
I
kind of
saw
stuff.
that. I saw you wearing the hat. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't fit my head, it's too small. But I think before that it was Russell Brunson. Russell Brunson was like the first marketing book I ever read because I just joined X and I think I just typed into Amazon like marketing book or something and picked up I think .com secrets, traffic secrets. When you kind of read those, then read Hormozy, and then now I've read a few more different things. It's like, oh, okay, they're all kind of like rehashing different things and bringing things back through different decades. But I think, yeah, right now my two favorite guys probably Sean Anthony. I don't know if you know him, and Ben Settle, two email guys.
Interesting. I might have to ask you for some specific recommendations after this
Yeah,
pod,
sure.
or if you want to give them now, because I've been so focused on a lot of like the philosophy stuff, a lot of the spiritual stuff, but I realized that's only one end of the bridge. You need the marketing, you need the sales at the other end to have the impact you want to have. And I noticed
Mm.
like you've shifted your email strategy, or maybe it's been like this for a while too. You're sending daily emails. So, what's the philosophy behind the daily emails as opposed to, say, somebody who writes one longer letter a week?
Yeah, with the daily emails, it's kind of a mental real estate thing. It's like you were saying with like the podcast, for example. Like I don't have a podcast. Well, we did one for a little while. I need to bring that back. I don't even at the minute really write like a long form post every day. So like the daily email is my way of kind of taking up that mental real estate as opposed to threads or videos or spaces. That's like the format I enjoy the most. So yeah, I mean, just versus, it just seems like I always think like newsletters. I got nothing against them because they do work, obviously, but like with my thing being the dailies, I always like to poke fun at the newsletters because they're packed full of like links to social media and here's this cool thing, here's that cool thing, here's this like value, and like so many people just write kind of like boring newsletters. So I sometimes nickname them snooze letters, just again poke a bit of fun. Yeah, and the dailies, they're just there every day. Like if you do the dailies well, you get people opening it just because they see your face and just to get like their little fix of you. And it doesn't even have to be like super valuable. It can be like something funny, something as long as it's entertaining and there's a little nugget there somewhere. And then, oh, and here's this little link. If you want that, you don't have to click it. I don't care if you don't click it. Then I just think
Right.
they work. Yeah, they work really good and they play into I enjoy writing them.
It's an interesting strategy because I actually kind of operate on the other end of the spectrum. I like to go one newsletter, like 3,000 words once a week. But I think there's a lot in
Big.
both of it, right? Because I'm doing that because my ultimate vision for where I want to take my brand is I want to be a writer. I want to be somebody who can write books and has a really,
Nice.
really deep base of ideas that these newsletters
Mm.
can eventually evolve into that. So I think it all comes back to like, what are you orienting towards and like, what do you want your brand to become? So how do you think about that right now? Because I see you as somebody who's a very good marketer, but you also are a very good writer, right? And that's your name is Glenn Wrights. So like, where do you see your brand evolving towards over say the next 3, 5 years?
I definitely haven't thought 5 years in advance, but I always just think like of the kind of life I want. The kind of life I want is send the email, make a ton of sales, and that'd be like the bulk of my day. Really, obviously, like I want to get some client work in the short term, just purely because people, I feel like a little bit, people probably look and think, oh, he's won a few amateur fights. He's had a few wins in the creator economy, but could he do it in like the big leagues or off platform with a client? So I want to do that just to get more results, more authority doing that, and then bring that back to X. But yeah, I just want like a low friction lifestyle business, really. I'm not too interested in having like a mega millionaire lifestyle or anything, just like all basic needs met, everything comfortably paid for, never have to worry about money, that kind of thing. So I don't know what the exact figure for that would be. I know the more you get, the more you want, right? So it's easy to say that
Yeah.
now, but yeah.
Yeah, and I actually had another question based on that because this is something I struggled through a little bit when I left college, which is similar to like the equivalent of leaving the 9 to 5, and I moved to Buenos
It
Aires,
is.
and now I had freedom over my time. I could basically work 5 to 10 hours a week, and I quote unquote like made it from the standard where I started at. So
Yeah.
you guys quit your jobs, move to Bali. What keeps you motivated and inspired to keep pushing, even though you quote unquote made it by 99% of money Twitter's standards?
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because when you start, you see the guys like you see that I quit my 9 to 5, and you're like, holy fuck, that's the dream right there. That's all I
Yeah,
want.
yeah,
And then you actually get it, and you're like, okay, my guaranteed salary is gone, my benefits are gone every month, unless you have MRR, which like most of us don't have monthly recurring revenue. So you kind of starting at zero again every month, and that's like a different kettle of stress. And you realize that leaving the job and going full time is actually like it's like the start of the journey, not the end. So you kind of I
yes.
celebrated for like half a day, and then I was kind of like, oh, weird, because you've got to like completely change your lifestyle, your routine. That's really difficult. Um, yeah, it's hard because you just think like, yeah, I'm cruising by on this amount, but it's not like if you end of the day, like if I stopped turning up to social media and just deleted my account, yeah, I've got my email list, but I'm not in a position where it's I'm 100% reliant on that.
Yeah, it's an interesting game when we play this for that freedom. We get on Twitter for freedom, but then you almost become a slave to the algorithm. You
Yeah,
become a
you really do.
slave to the platform. So I
Yeah,
think about this too. Like, okay, I do like writing online. I like creating content, but the whole game that gets involved with it, sometimes it's very draining and it's not something I
it
want to
is.
do for the rest of my life. So how do you think about that in the long term? Like, do you have a plan or some type of roadmap where eventually you won't be so reliant on social media for your income and for your influence?
Yeah, definitely. All back to the email list. Like I want that to be my main source and some client work in the background supplementing it. Because I feel like at this stage where I'm at now, the two go together very well. Like you can get results for clients, talk about it on X, help people like 3 steps behind you on X. and it's like a bit of a flywheel. Like they're very symbiotic. But yeah, I don't want to be in a position where like, oh, I haven't tweeted today. Oh, I need to write the week's worth of content. Like I like doing it, but since doing the daily email, the tweets are more like, oh, I have to tweet now. Versus because once the email is written, I'm content, but then I have to write X content and then figure out what can I put on LinkedIn and all these other different things. So just need to systemize it.
Yeah. And I think those systems will just evolve and develop over time. But
I
that
hope so.
daily email, yeah, no, I bet they definitely will. And I think of like somebody like Eddie Kwan, who he pitches this, like he probably writes an email for 30 minutes a day every day, and like he's making bank off of that. And it's very interesting to think about that side of playing the game. So when you're writing these daily emails, do you have like a format you're following, or is it more so like just off the top of your head?
Not it's sometimes off the top of my head, sometimes not. There's a an email planner I got from Ben Settle where it's like it just rotates through different things. You've got things like Q&A, like a weird or shocking email, and then you have like a contrarian take, then you have an inspirational story, then another Q&A, and it goes through these different types of emails. So if I'm kind of lost, I'll look at that and be like, oh, right, this type of email today, and then write it out, pick a subject line. But I try and keep them light and about people, about things that are happening, usually things that are happening like day to day, even small, tiny things like, I don't know, you get a bad haircut, you can write an email about that and tie it into something and then put an offer at the end, that kind of stuff.
Interesting.
So yeah, it consumes a lot of my creativity. So after that, I kind of have nothing left apart from stuff that pops into my head throughout the day for tweets.
And how long approximately usually are these emails?
I would say like 200 to 400 words, usually. Not super long. I guess if you average it out over a week, then it's like 1,000, like 1,500 words, maybe 2,000 words.
Yeah, it's interesting because then we'd probably be writing the exact same amount within a week. It's just I'm putting mine in one, you're splitting yours over seven, which I
Yeah.
do see positive benefits to both sides of that. The one thing that I would personally be a bit concerned about, and I'm curious your take on it, is like, how do you send daily emails every single day to your list without becoming annoying or without them starting to say, like, oh, this guy's just trying to sell me? Because that's what would
Yeah.
hold me up from it.
You do. If you go from weekly to daily, you do get that. So, like, what I do is on my opt in, like, I make sure people know, like, I'm going to send you emails every day and it's going to have links in sometimes. And, I will try and sell you stuff, but I'll only try and sell you stuff that I think would be good for you. So, as long as they know what they're getting in, but if you start on weekly, then go daily, then yeah, you'll get spam complaints, you'll get a ton of people unsubscribing. I think Parker Worth was telling me he went from like 5K to 4.5K because I don't know if he goes daily right now, but he goes like very close to daily, and he just a ton of people on sub report for spam. But like usually, if you like, depends how you got your tagging set up, you'll see most people that unsub, like they never really like click the links. They usually don't buy stuff. Like sometimes they do in the unsub anyway. But yeah, you just flush people. You do flush certain people away, but it makes other people like you more. So it is a trade off. Like some people think it's genuinely annoying. They don't like getting an email every day.
Yeah, but those people probably wouldn't buy from you anyway. So it's almost better to squeeze that list down to people who are actually interested in what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. You also realize like the size of the list doesn't actually matter too much because it's like, where did you get the list? Like, how did you get it? Like, if you just gave away like really generic lead magnets about like a niche, not a niche topic. Like, for example, I built my first 1,000 subs off like random X giveaways that like they weren't that great,
Yeah.
I'll be honest. And like those email subs aren't that good, but the ones I've had like the last 6 months have been much higher quality. So
No, that's really interesting. And with this daily email, do you write them every single day or do you batch them into one day?
I would like to write that day as the day before, but currently I just write it every morning and then schedule it for the afternoon, which is like you need a buffer really. So I might start doing a couple ahead.
Okay. And do you see this being sustainable, like 365 daily emails a year for like maybe 1, 2, 3 years?
Yeah, I think so. It kind of just becomes a point. It's like a Duolingo streak eventually as well. You're like, well, I've gone every
Yeah,
day,
yeah.
so I might as well. And then sometimes during a launch, you can go to like 2 a day, 3 a day. Then you get really annoying. Like I made what I would say was a genuine mistake yesterday because I sent the third of the day, and the subject line was literally "Am I annoying?" question mark.
I saw that. Yeah, I saw
And
that
it
on your
like
Twitter.
it actually was really annoying. Like a ton of people replied like, "Oh, I hate you" on sub and stuff. So it's quite funny.
Yeah. I actually sent the most marketing emails I've ever sent yesterday because it was the last day before the price for the
Nice.
cohort increased. And I sent like, this is the last day. You have 4 hours, you have 1 hour. And I'm
You got
like,
to do it.
I put in one of the emails. I'm like, I'm sorry. I don't want to be the guy who's just marketing to you, but I do want to make you aware that like if you want to work with me, this is the last time you're going to get it for this price. So, but I
That's
do
good.
feel bad. I feel a little bit
Yeah.
bad for doing it.
It's kind of good. Like I saw a couple people like apologizing in the emails, and I think it's definitely something you like shouldn't do. Like apologizing anyway, because like you don't want to come across as needy whatsoever. Like it is a bit like attitude, and people are gonna like unsub, but it's also like, oh, this guy's like cheeky.
Yeah.
Like people can respect that, but I think. So how did that go with the launch? Like, do you know what kind of percentage you got to join through your list versus on the timeline?
So I haven't mapped like where people actually came from. It's
It's tough
actually
to
a
know.
little bit spread, which is interesting. Like I know some people were directly from the XDMs. Some people were from my
Nice.
free course that I put out a few weeks ago. Another couple people, one of my old mentors ended up buying the cohort, and he's like
Nice.
55, which was like very surprising. And
Sick.
then somebody from like Instagram bought too. And I don't really post over there either. So kind of spread, but it
That's
was
cool.
very, and I wanted to get into like the emotions of the launches and stuff because the
Yeah.
first day I put it out on Black Friday, I got one sale and I was like, oh, that's so tough. And I was actually like beating myself up for it.
Yeah.
But I was at the same time, I was like, it's my first launch. It's a learning experience. And then yesterday, with all those marketing emails on Cyber Monday for the last day of that price, I closed 10K. And I was like, this is unbelievable. Like, that's
Nice.
more money than I've made in the past 4 months. So it's
Nice
been
one.
like a wild ride of emotions because
Yeah,
Monday
it's
morning,
savage.
when I woke up, I was like feeling a little bit burnt out. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
what's even a point? And then I checked and it's like, you got 4 sales. And I'm like, holy
Nice.
shit. So with you guys, with your launches, because you've been launching multiple times over and over,
Yeah.
how do you deal with that roller coaster of emotions? Because it's a lot.
It's savage, yeah. I feel for you on that first day of the one sale because it you literally think like, oh, I'm a failure. I'm gonna have to get a job. But like this sucks.
Yeah. You start going to the worst case scenario. I'm like, I have to go back
Yeah.
to college. Like, this
Oh
sucks.
man. Yeah, exactly. You're like, oh, I'm not cut out for this. My fans like don't, my brand is weak, all this stuff. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So the first time we launched was it just went ridiculously well. But actually, in hindsight, like as amazing as that was, you don't really I feel like you don't learn as much from the if you have a perfect launch, you don't really learn as much. You learn way more from flopping. And we flopped a couple
Yes.
times since, which is actually I've learned 10 times more from that than when stuff just goes well. So yeah, it was a similar story for us. We had like only a couple in the first 12, 18 hours. We'd hired this, we're in this villa. We just felt like freaking idiots. We were literally all just floating in the pool, like, oh, so it's over then. And
Wow.
then started to dig a bit deeper. And then in the days after that, it got better and better. But yeah, I feel your pain. It's such a horrible roller coaster. You go from thinking like, oh, I'm a failure, and then you're like, oh, everything's amazing again. Like a couple hours later, and you wake up like 3 times during the night, and you check the notifications because it's so hard not to, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, goddamn.
Yeah. It is crazy. You got to monitor that dopamine. And something else I'm
Oh, it's
trying to do
nuts.
is
Yeah.
like, really, and I've talked about this a little bit in like a mental health newsletter and mental health ish podcast that I did, is like trying to detach your self-worth from social media or from
Yeah.
these metrics
It's
because
hard.
when you feel like very excited, even like yesterday, I felt excited because I had my best day ever. But it's like by giving that power, you're also giving the horrible
You
flop
are.
launch power too. So it's like,
You are.
how can you just detach from the outcome completely,
It's hard.
focus on what you can control, and just like navigate this from a place of equanimity and stability? So, how are
Mm.
you like trying to navigate that?
It is really difficult, to be honest. I've lately I've got a lot better at complete like well, I wouldn't no one's completely detached, but I've really tried to detach myself from like engagement figures and this kind of thing, which is difficult. It's quite hard to do.
Yeah,
But I think one way of getting over it is I've had a couple of flops now, so I'm like a little bit more. I wouldn't say seasoned by any means, but once you've had a few flops, you're like, okay, I can take it. I'm a big boy.
yeah.
It's obviously nicer to have a win and then a couple of flops because at least you know there is a win there. So if you've done it once, you can do it again. But yeah, I it's rough. Like yeah, it definitely had a massive impact on me the first day of the last launch when it wasn't going so well.
Yeah.
But then
Something
it's
else that, oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just you just ask yourself like why did this not go well, or we did this wrong, we did this wrong, we did this wrong, and you fix it, and then it's good data.
Exactly. And something else that I think has been beneficial for me, and I want to make sure I lean into this more. And I was actually listening to Jordan Peterson last night, and he said he wished he did this more in his 20s and 30s, is cultivating hobbies that you just enjoy outside of your work, so that like that's not the only thing that gives you satisfaction
Yeah,
and pleasure. And so I'm trying to incorporate more, like I love lifting. I'm getting back into running. I do yoga. After this podcast, I'm gonna go play basketball with my friend. So I can like just
nice.
go and do that and like kind of forget about the creator economy for a couple hours, which is really nice and refreshing. And
Mm.
I know you were big into like powerlifting back in the day. So do you still keep up with that now? Or like what other hobbies do you try to cultivate outside of business?
So I go to like boxing classes like 3 times a week. I've slacked off massively on that with all the traveling and the launches. So I'm trying to get back into that, trying to get back into the gym as well. I lost my reading habit for like 6 months, worst thing I ever did, because it just,
Mm,
my mind just went into mush basically without that.
yeah.
But yeah, I think you're completely right. You need a hobby, and I'm trying to, I don't know, maybe I'll buy like a fly fishing rod or something, because I need something where it's like, I'm going to go do this for 2 hours, just me, and I'm not going to think
Yes.
about, because I cannot switch my mind off usually at all.
Same. Same. It's a blessing and a curse because I think that active mind probably gives us an advantage where we're like, we can come up with ideas quick, we can execute on them
Yeah.
quick, but also being able to detach is so important. And I think like getting more specific with that hobby, like fly fishing or something, where you actually like have to put your phone away for a couple
Yeah.
hours. Like you're
Yeah.
actually forced to. Like when I was in Costa Rica and I was trying to get into surfing, it didn't go well at all. But like you can't bring your phone into the ocean, so like you have
Yeah,
no
exactly.
choice but to just step away and like get into the present moment. So basketball does that for me too. But I'm just trying to like make sure that that stays a point of emphasis, because if I lose those hobbies, and even like reading too, if I lose that education, that's when
Yeah.
that burnout can really start to creep up on me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you just spend the whole day, everyone knows, like social media, I don't know, like having a career from it, it feels like being paid to smoke in some ways, I think, because you kind of have to be on it, but you have to balance it, and it's addictive, and
Yes.
it's tricky.
So do you have any ways that you try to remove yourself from the day-to-day operations of the social media game? And I can get into some ways I've been experimenting with doing this too.
I'd like to hear how you're doing it, but I'm not doing the best job of it. So I have the app deleted on my phone, is one small thing, because the browser app is
Okay.
so bad it makes you just not want to use it. So that's one thing. For a little while there, I was sleeping with my phone downstairs, but that's been broken recently. So it's hard, man. Just getting away from it. I need some like hard and fast
Yeah.
rules.
That no, that's smart to like get it off your phone. It's just I see it like sometimes if I'm on my phone more, it's actually like better for me because I'm in the DMs more. I'm actually more productive, and that's where all
It's
the
true.
action
It's true.
happens
Yeah,
too.
exactly.
So
Yeah,
it's such a double-edged sword.
it
But
really is.
something I've done to just help me try to like remove myself from a little bit like some of these menial tasks that take like 30 to 60 minutes a day is I just hired my cousin to basically be like a upscaled VA for me, where like
Nice.
she is like if there's a very generic email, she'll respond to it. Or if somebody joins my email, she'll send like an automated message. Or
Nice.
she's taking my tweets and reposting them to my Instagram.
That's
So
good.
those little things I'm trying to like remove myself from because they take so much time and energy, and they suck you in. Because then if I end up posting on my Instagram story, next thing you know, I'm scrolling Instagram reels, and it's like you just can't be doing that.
Your reels are deadly as well.
Yeah.
I haven't had IG on my phone for quite a long time now, luckily. But I remember reels, YouTube Shorts. I still get sucked into sometimes, and it's like the same 50 reels on shuffle.
Yeah.
It's not good. Yeah, the VA is good. It was Virgil that told us like hire a VA, even if you only need them like an hour a week at first, just because when you haven't got one, you kind of think, oh, what can I don't know what to give the VA. But then when you have a VA, you start like
Yes.
giving them stuff. And once you let someone onto your account, for example, like, and you get used to having that feeling, you kind of trust them with a lot more stuff, and it's a good investment.
Yeah, and I think like having somebody who you really trust to help you with that is very valuable too. Because I put out a post like on my Instagram story, which is mostly people I've known my whole life before this stuff. And I said, hey, if anybody wants to work 30 to 45 minutes a day, I'll pay you $200 a month. And my cousin was like, I'm down. And so I'm like, okay, I trust my cousin a lot more than some random
Yeah,
person from across the world. So that's
yeah,
why I hired her.
yeah. That's a good sense, man. Yeah, we've got someone from across the world. We kind of share them between the three of us. And I always thought, like, how can you let someone just, what if they just log on to your X account and just like mess everything up? But then I thought, well, how come I didn't just turn up to work in my old job one day and just like strip naked and run around the office? Like, you just wouldn't, because that's your
Yeah.
job. And if it's a half decent job, which, you know, if you pay them 5, 6, 7 bucks an hour, for them, that's like a damn good job. So they're like making sure everything goes to plan.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like as you level up in entrepreneurship, the ability to delegate and outsource is more and more valuable. And I'm just in the beginning stages of that. But in your entrepreneurial journey, because you're relatively new to it, like working the nine to
Oh, yeah.
five, now you're really into it. Like, where do you see it progressing? I'd love to think about the long term vision, like 10-year vision. And I know you
Yeah.
said you hadn't thought too much more past like 3 to 5 years, but like in 10 years, like is there a certain figure you look up to?
Like like a person or like a numerical figure?
No, like a person. We could
Like a
also talk
person.
about numerical figure if you want to.
I don't know, like a house completely paid off, like passive income streams. In terms of a person I look up to, I don't know. Like, for example, like as much as I look up to like Hormozy and stuff, I wouldn't really want his lifestyle, I don't think. Because it's like I get it, like works for him, but I would get to like 300M and be like, do I really need to get to like 1B?
Yeah.
I'll just chill now. And I'm sure like in his case, he's probably like he can't chill because he's too like zoned into his goals and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I just want to be able to do whatever I want when I want to do it,
Yeah.
basically.
I resonate with that. And I think that's that driving force for 99% of people in the creator economy. But you
I think
bring
so,
up an
yeah.
interesting point with Hormozy where he's just so obsessed with this game, like, and he sees it as a game.
Yeah.
And sometimes like for all this creator stuff, it really feels like a video game for me where I'm like
Same.
obsessed and addicted in a productive way. But other times that fades and it starts to feel like a burden. So
Mm.
for you, like, do you have any tricks to keep yourself immersed and obsessed with this game that we're playing?
I guess just having a really addictive personality. I don't know if you ever played like World of Warcraft or anything.
No, but like I've been very addicted to like sports video games and like
Yeah.
GTA. So same ideas.
It's
Yeah.
anything like that. You play it for 8 hours and then you go to bed and you're thinking about it in bed, like, oh, you know, one more mission. Just if I just do this for 20 more minutes, make 2 more potions. Like that's how it is with
Yeah.
this. I'll do a ton of stuff, especially at the start when it was just a massive grind with no real, like an uncertain grind, not knowing what's ahead. I was like, all right, one more follower, one more DM, one more. I'll just build this lead magnet and make this resource. And yeah, just really addictive personality. It does help, but it's also tricky, kind of trying to stop it like taking over.
Yeah. Do you still feel that same level of obsession that you had at the beginning?
It's a little bit different, I think. I think it was more like blind faith and a bit of like, you know, when everything something's really fresh, like someone follows you and you're like, oh, this is crazy. You get an invoice paid and you're going nuts. It's a little bit less of that now, and it's more targeted towards like longer goals over bigger time frames. But I'm still as obsessed with getting to the goals. I just get less excited about the steps on the way, I think.
I see. Yeah, same thing has happened for me. Like at the beginning, everything is just new and it's like
Yeah.
this is incredible. Like somebody liked
Yeah.
my tweet. Like holy shit.
Yeah. It's awesome.
But now you get like 100 likes and it's just like like I feel like I have to go respond to the comments and I want to make sure that I see that always as like a privilege and something to be grateful for rather than a
It's true.
burden. So that's something I'm navigating. But something else, I was looking back into some of your old tweets and I saw you had like a knack for starting side hustles when you were younger, and I did the same thing, like
Yeah.
drop shipping, like buying and flipping Jordans on eBay and all that stuff.
Oh,
So
that's cool.
where did that interest come from, and how young were you when you started these entrepreneurial type of things?
I don't know where the interest came from, but I guess since I always like played a ton of games and then the side hustle stuff came after that, so I can assume it's probably related to that. And I always just thought
Yeah,
there's something really freaking cool about like money coming out of your computer,
yeah,
especially during college when I was doing like match betting and stuff. I was like the only one of my friends. I was making like $17,000 a year doing it, which now seems like nothing, but it was without tax, and everyone else in uni is broke pretty much usually. So I was like rich in university, and like I just felt super cool because of it.
yeah. That's and how have you seen some of those side hustles that you did when you're a kid, like transition into what you're doing now? Do you notice any parallels?
Mm. I think just the same pleasure of like winning the game or like trying to win the game and just getting. I don't know. There's probably some kind of like weird ego thing in it somewhere where I just think it's really cool to be able to use your brain to get paid. because I'm quite a logical guy. Like I read books and pride myself on being this and that. So I don't really like. I always think I should be the kind of person who can like make money with their brain instead of the hands. No shame to people who use hands, like my brothers use hands, but
And your brother's on X as well too, right? Harry?
yeah, both. Yeah, two of them.
They're both on X.
Yeah, they're both on X.
Whoa, whole family's on there. That's insane. How
Yeah,
old are your
it's funny.
brothers?
Lewis is 27 and Harry's 25, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now I'm curious, what does like your family and your extended family think about what you guys are all doing? Because I can imagine trying to explain that at like family parties might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, it's a bit weird. My family are pretty cool with it, even since pretty early on. I think Lewis and Harry only came on the scene once I had some success, and they were like, "Oh, this looks cool." Lewis has more problems with it than me because he's a dad quite recently. So even if he's making like some money, he's kind of like, "Well, I have a kid and I work this job." Like, there's different priorities to weigh up. But yeah, it's weird. I don't think we've been at a family party yet where all three of us have had to explain it at once because it would sound pretty weird. Then it'd be like, "Yeah, we
Yeah,
like like tweet stuff and write emails."
it does sound so absurd. And I'm back home right now, so I'm hanging out with a lot of like old friends, high school friends. All my
Mm,
friends are in their last year of university, and
nice.
I left university, and so I'm like very much on the outside of the game that they're playing, and like
Yeah,
trying to explain it. It just sounds absurd. Like
it
I'm
does.
like,
Yeah,
oh yeah, I have a Zoom call with a guy from the UK who like quit his job and moved to Bali, and I'm gonna post it as a podcast. And they're like,
no, that's
that's your
cool.
job? Like, what does that even mean?
That's sick. So where are you at now? Your friends, like everyone else your age, is in their final year.
Yeah, so if I was still in university, I'd be graduating this upcoming June, basically. But so I actually left. I took a break back in this past March. I started ghostwriting and I made a friend in San Francisco named Matt Mick. And we were just like
Nice.
so bullish on this creator stuff. And we were both playing with the idea of leaving. So we basically were like, all right, we're going to take some time off, go to Buenos Aires. And since then, I've just like kept reevaluating the decision. Like, do I think I should go back and finish? And actually, like last week, I was questioning it for the most I ever have with
Yeah,
the launch somewhat flopping at the start. And
yeah.
then I have a really smart friend from college who was like really questioning on it. And it almost had me convinced, but it does feel like a step in the
Mm.
wrong direction. So I actually want to ask you, as somebody older and wiser than myself and who's been through university, like, what do you think? You think I should go back and finish it? You think I should just stay both fledged on this path? What do you think?
Depends. Like, what were you doing?
So I studied economics for the first 2 years. I was very much on the track to becoming like an investment banker, consultant, like finance type guy.
Hmm.
Thankfully, I didn't. Then I switched to psychology and I didn't really know what I wanted to do with that. I was debating maybe for a little bit doing like clinical psychology. I got really into Jordan Peterson. I like that a lot. But then I started also playing with entrepreneurship. So it was like psychology and entrepreneurship. And I wanted to help people basically like life kind of like a life coach.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and now I see that really manifesting in the creator economy. And I feel like no path that the education system would set me up for is one that could provide me the same opportunities as this one.
I mean, if you feel like that, then I would say you're probably pretty safe.
Yeah. And
Because
a
I
lot
know a
of the,
ton of guys. The
yeah,
investment bank one is tough because I know a lot of people in that, and they do very well for themselves, but they're also insanely overworked and like
yeah.
not usually in love with their jobs. So
Yeah, I talked to a kid who I used to be friends with who is very much in the investment banking world. And like we literally were on the same path. I just happened to not get the job at Goldman Sachs and he did, or else I'd be in the same spot. And thank God I didn't get the job.
yeah,
But like his workload, like the first year out of college, he's making like 200K US. And
yeah,
like
it's
that's
nuts.
insane, right?
It's big.
But
Yeah.
his work schedule is like
Hmm.
be at the office at 7 and don't leave until 1 a.m
Yeah,
every day, 5, 6 days a week. And
yeah,
it's like I don't think I'm built for that. I don't think I'm cut out.
yeah. No, if you have that thing in your head where you're like you cannot accept working for someone else for like giving your entire life to someone else's thing, even if the money's pretty good, it's you're
Yeah.
never going to be really happy in that environment. You can pretend to be happy and like try and just play the game for a bit. Like I've tried to do that, but ultimately I'm always like I just don't like it. I'd rather almost make less and have be able to do what I want.
I 100% agree. And something I noticed too is like after finding Naval's stuff and just hearing his principles of like, you cannot get rich renting out your time. Even if you're in a high paying lawyer, doctor,
It's
investment
true.
banking job, your inputs are still matched to your outputs. But like for you guys, you can put out a launch, you can put out a couple emails and you make exponential income. And you can't do that when you're working under somebody. So even if those first few years are tough and like you seem like you're behind your peers because they're making 250K, like you're building something more
Mm,
valuable, which I think is that leverage. And then eventually it goes exponential.
yeah, the feeling of being behind your peers is a very weird feeling. Like I felt like I was getting behind my peers slowly, and it really bothered me. It's just I'm
Really?
naturally a little bit competitive, and
Yeah.
you shouldn't be like, oh, I'm my personal worth is my salary, but like when all your friends start to do better than you, I don't know, it like really bothered me. That was one of the drives behind me really just saying, all right, this year I'm going to do something and actually like stick to it and actually freaking try hard at something for once.
Interesting. So that feeling of falling behind was like 1 to 2 years ago before you started on Twitter.
Yeah, literally recently, like it was my New Year's resolution. I was like, right, that's it. All these
Mm.
little side hustles, like making a little bit here and there. I was like, I'm gonna go like big on one thing and just try really freaking hard and just see where it goes. Because I'm like a professional slacker, like C's in school. I got a good grade, better grades in uni, but it wasn't a very good uni, so it doesn't really matter. And then like slacking through work, slacking through this. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
feel like our personality types are both built for entrepreneurship because I was the
yeah,
same way in school. I couldn't get myself to care unless I was really
yeah.
interested in the
That
class.
was it.
But when
Yeah.
you're building something on your own, it's like playing a video game. It's absolute obsession and addiction.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a little kid who like, he won't do what you tell him, but he'll sit for 6 hours and build Lego because it's
Right.
kind of how I feel. If I'll build my own thing all freaking day. And I actually work more now than when I quit my 9 to 5 because my fiance always says, she's like, how come you quit your job and you're still on your laptop till 8 or 9 every night? And I'm like, because I just can't stop. I can't put it down.
Yeah, that's a common theme I've talked to a lot of creators about is like this addiction and like trying to set boundaries. But on one end of the stick, like it is very beneficial. So
It is.
I'm kind of curious to go back to your peers because how are you 29, 30, like
Yeah,
around that
29.
age?
Yeah.
29. So I feel like that's a very interesting transition in life where like you're really moving out
Yeah,
of
it is.
your youth and now you're like really an adult. So like what do your friends think about what you're doing? Do they know?
Honestly, I don't they know what I'm doing and they're like cool with it. They don't really like get it. But none of my friends are the type who, for example, even when I was doing match betting in university, like that was really easy money. Like it would have taken me an hour to sit down with someone and show them exactly how to do it to make like
Yeah.
$1,000 a month at least. And they'd be like, oh, cool. Like zero interest, most of my friends. Some people just really don't care. They're not interested. They get like, they're just happy at work, come home, salary, whatever. Not to, there's literally nothing wrong with that. Like,
Mhm.
but if you just, I don't know, like have the nagging little insect in your brain that says, nah, not good enough, have to do more.
Yeah, and where do you think that comes from? Because I noticed that as well. Like, the majority of my friends are just completely content with going that normal path, but for some reason I wasn't. So, like, why do you think we were different in some way than the masses? You could say.
Oh, I don't know. I think it comes down to maybe some of your influences as well, because it depends. Like when I was 16, 17, 18, like my big influences then was like, I know you like Alan Watts, he was a big influence. Do you know George Carlin?
I've heard the
Like a
name, but I don't know
yeah,
his stuff.
like an old comedian, like him, Terence McKenna, all these people who were
Nice.
super like I'd like massively anti-establishment, and I just got
Yeah.
really suckered in by them. So then when I went to uni, I had not a bad attitude, but I had the wrong attitude already when I went to university. I was like, oh, no one's going to tell me to do this and that, like
Mm.
you know, all that kind of stuff. I think it probably came from those early influences, and maybe it's like genetic as well. Because even when I'm at
Yeah.
work, my boss tells me to do something. I'm like, there's a better way of doing it, but you're not accepting it, and this really annoys me.
Interesting. I wonder if it does come back a lot to genetics and personality traits because I think to become interested in like Alan Watts or Terrence McKenna, you have to be fairly open minded to even be interested
Yeah,
in their ideas. So there's probably a big genetic component to it, but there's probably also a bit of like a rebellious streak to it as well. Even I would add to that as well, like some type of deeper insecurity. I think that's what drives a
oh yeah,
lot of people in the entrepreneurial community. And I
yeah,
saw one of your tweets was like, I used to get picked last. So,
yeah,
like on the sports team. So, do you think
yeah.
that's like a driving factor in like your ambition, your competitiveness?
it's not so much being picked last on the sports teams. That's like a symptom of it, though. I've definitely got some. I think didn't someone say it's like a trait of successful people is just crippling insecurity. I'm definitely
Yeah.
quite insecure in a lot of ways, but I'm also very confident in other ways. So yeah, I think I just being insecure, like I want to win. I hate losing. So
Yeah.
like if I play FIFA and I lose, I'm gonna get real annoyed. I don't even like winning. I just like not losing.
That's hilarious. Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it was a Hormozy quote. He's like the three top traits of success, like ultra successful people, are they're massively insecure, but they also have a massive superiority complex. Like they
Yeah,
think they're better than everybody. And then the third one is they can put in actions and have extremely long periods of time to delay gratification. And like if those
yeah,
three traits are there, like that's usually an indicator of ultra successful. But I want to definitely have that ability to delay gratification, but I want to work on those other two dimensions.
yeah. Because I feel like the delayed gratification one is one I'm not sure I have. Because I was listening to him say that, and I was like, oh, I have that. I don't know why. Maybe I have that. And I was like, oh, I definitely don't have that. And I was like, oh, damn.
What makes you think you don't have that?
Oh, no, it's just like difficult. Like to actually master delayed gratification is really difficult because you've got to like visualize like 5, 10 years instead of, oh, but I want the quick win now or next week or next month.
It's tough. And I think the older you get, I think the easier it might be to think in longer term time horizons. I think, especially when you're young, you're super impulsive. And I'm still like
Mm,
working through that too. And even like your brain isn't developed until you're 25 and your
true.
prefrontal cortex isn't developed. And that's like
Yeah, it's
the
true.
center of decision making and rationale. So it's
Mm,
something I'm actively trying to work on, like starting to think in the longer time horizons because I've been getting into Sam Oven stuff a lot recently. He's the founder of School, and he talks a
hmm.
lot about like Bezos and how Bezos, like, he's not thinking in even 1 to 3 year time horizons. He's like thinking in 10, 20 year time horizons.
It's
That's what
crazy.
separates those top guys. They're thinking in the longest time horizons.
Yeah, I definitely don't think in that in long time horizons. Actually, one of the reasons I went ham this year is because I was like, right, I'm 29. I was getting married, I think, 18 months exactly from New Year's Eve. And we're building a house in Ireland as well. So I was like, right, I'm going to be 30. I'm going to get married. I'm going to get married and probably have kids pretty quickly after. I was like, 18 months. If I don't do something
Wow.
in that 18 months, I'm going to be in an office that I don't want to be in because I've got no other choice.
Wow.
It's kind of
That
how it
is a
felt like.
crazy, that's a crazy forcing function for massive action when you have those external circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's anxiety inducing as well, but it's also like, was I think mice will tug harder on a spring if they're running away from a cat smell than they will like for the cheese or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a great frame. And I think like if I look back to why did I start doing this? Why did I go so hard? It was because I realized, okay, I have 2 years left of college. If I don't figure something out, I'm
Yeah,
gonna have to go to this corporate job. And that was so terrifying that it forced me to run the other direction fast as hell.
that's cool, man. I guess did you have pressure from family as well? Because if what you're doing instead of college doesn't work out, would they be like, well, come on, you need to get into this corporate job?
I think at the beginning there was a lot of uncertainty, especially when I called them and I'm like, I'm gonna leave like a top 10 university in the
Post
US
top
and
10.
move to Argentina and become a ghostwriter. Like that sounds pretty crazy. And my grandparents, especially, like they want me to graduate so they can like tell their friends, like Jack graduated from X
Yep.
university. So there's a part of that, but I
Yeah.
think they see more and more now that like because I try to explain to them very in detail like what my vision is, what I'm going towards, what it could
Mm,
become, and that excites them a lot. And I think they're
that's good.
realizing I can also save them another $100,000 by not finishing. So that's nice to them. It speeds up my dad's retirement too.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, that's good then. Yeah, at least they're like on board because I know a lot of people get a lot of family pressure when they're in college, like crazy
Yeah,
amount to finish, like to the point where their parents had put up probably a very significant fight to them leaving
yeah,
college.
yeah. I would say I'm very grateful that my parents have always been supportive, and I know a lot of friends who like haven't had ideas about doing something similar, but their parents like lay the law down and they're like, "No, you're
Mm,
finishing." My parents never like told me what I could and could not do. And I find that to be kind of off-putting when like a parent will tell their kid like, "No, you have to do this," because it's like it's only your life. You only know your situation. You have to do what's best for you. So I've never loved that. And as a parent, like I want to advise my kid to do what I
Yeah.
think is right, but at the same time, like realizing that it's their life.
Yeah. It's tough. Like credit to your parents because obviously finishing college is the societal norm, especially if it's a good college and it's, you're going to be like an investment banker
Yeah.
or whatever. But like ultimately, if they force you into it, all that's going to happen, you're going to be resentful. Like admit it or not, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people are quite resentful. They got funneled into university without really wanting to go.
Yeah, but like you almost don't see another opportunity or you don't see another path
Mm.
because that's just the path everybody's playing that game, so you play the game
Yeah.
too. But when you step outside of the game and you find these different thinkers, like for me,
Mm-hmm.
like finding Naval and like Paul Graham, like and Hormozy, like they completely changed my worldview and like how I thought about these things. So I guess maybe this would be an interesting topic to finish on. If you could pick like three of the most influential people in your life in terms of how you see the world, how you see your future, who would those three people be?
I can only pick three.
Three's tough.
Three's tough, yeah. Like, because I'm trying to think of my whole life, not just recently. I suppose, like, do you know Bill Hicks, comedian?
No, I'm not
Yeah,
big into the comedy scene.
he would be one. Like, I was big into comedy a while ago, and some like of these super anti-authority comedians from the '90s were like big influences on me. So I'd probably say him, and then I would say, oh, people. I'm such like an anti-authority guy. There's not too many people I put on like a really big pedestal. I would say like I'll
Mm,
say my grandfather as well. He can be one, and then what else can I have? Just trying to think of my bookshelves, like who's on there.
yeah.
Who's another big dude on my bookshelves? Oh, I don't know. It's one of those like my girlfriend always has a go at me because whenever she asks me a question, like what do you want for dinner, I'll just answer with another question, and it's never just freaking straightforward.
Well, I want to maybe ask a question about why you chose your grandfather because that's a very interesting choice to me.
Yeah, I mean, he's just like to me, he was like the masculine pinnacle of the family. Like the advisor would never say, "Oh, you should do this, you should do that." Just constantly supportive, no matter what. Uh, shows you how to be a proper man, all that good stuff, but without being like overbearing. Like a solid foundational person. So yeah, I'd say him, and then yeah, I can't think of a third one. What would your third be? Not your third, your three.
My three. Well, first of all, I think like having your grandfather in there is really cool. I always think towards like big thinkers, like not family as much, but I think like
Mm,
I could definitely put my dad in there as one of them. I think that's really powerful. And then Naval is probably like the biggest influence. And then even a little bit more recent, like finding Dan Coe's stuff completely changed my life. Just like I opened me up to this world, and I'm forever grateful that I found his YouTube channel and found this side of the internet because it's changed my life. So I'd say those three.
that's
I
awesome.
think that's an interesting three.
Yeah, it's a good three.
And I actually one more question before we hop off here, coming back to maybe a little bit more growth army. What can we expect from you guys and yourself coming up this next year in 2024? What are you guys thinking about?
We need to meet up and actually hatch out the full 2024 plan. We don't have any like big immediate projects. We've got like something cooking for like people already in Growth Army and a few people who've like bought our stuff, like an invitation only type thing. But yeah, nothing like huge coming on the horizon. We're trying to turn the business into a little bit more like evergreen selling instead of like these big peaks and
Yeah,
troughs that we're having at the minute. We want to get like solid income. I would almost dare say I'd rather have 20K a month 3 months in a row than like 100K a month and then nothing for 2 months.
I resonate with that. And that's something I've already noticed too with like launching a cohort. It's like, yeah, you get a big spike and then you're down to zero. So how can you start to include some type of MRR into the equation? That's something I'm thinking about for 2024 as well.
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, you have to deliver a cohort now as well, which is even with
Yeah.
three of us, that was a handful. So
Yeah, yeah, it should be an interesting learning experience for sure. But I'm excited for it. I'm excited to take on the
yeah,
challenge.
good. Yeah, I like so it sounds like you've got like an extra angle on your cohort. I don't know too much about it, but you've got like the self-improvement angle like baked into it.
Yeah, there's definitely a personal development angle. I have the curriculum right now structured into two different phases. So phase
Mm-hmm.
one is like mastering the creator economy. So
Mm-hmm.
everything you would need to know to get started on your creator journey. What
Nice.
platforms should you post on? What tools do you need? How do you actually grow? How do you build a digital resume that stands out from other people? How do you make a living off social media? All this stuff.
Hmm.
And then the second half of the curriculum, phase two, is going to be very performance based. So like now you know all the principles to succeed in the creator economy. Now let's make sure that you're operating at your peak capacity so you can execute. So that's where
That's
it's at
cool.
right now. And then my bigger vision for it is evolving it more into a holistic personal development school
I like
where
that. Sounds good.
as I learn more about marketing, sales, and then also more on the personal development side, like bringing them all together under one umbrella. So that's big vision. I don't know how far out that is, but that's where my mind is at.
That's cool. I'm not surprised to hear the launch was a success after you've just because what you've described to me there is like different. I haven't heard that before. So like
Thank
incorporating
you.
the self development. It's really cool.
I appreciate it. Yeah. And it's interesting because I had a lot of people tell me when I told them the idea, like, that's not going to work. Like, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't mix the two. But I think I have a little bit of the same anti establishment, like, I'm going to do what I want as you. And I think
Yeah.
you need that unwavering conviction, or else like you start making decisions based off other people's opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and then you're taking someone else's business and making it your own. Like Dan Kennedy always says, like whatever everyone else in the market is doing, like do the opposite. And it's like
Mm,
every day I'm learning what like good advice that is. Like the problem with it is you have to be a little bit different, a little bit ballsy, because there's no like
yes.
you have to have that sense of is this going to work because it's different, but you just have to be brave.
That's the only way you could stand out is if you are willing to go against the grain. No, I love
Exactly.
that. I'm
Exactly.
excited to see where you guys evolve with this because after talking to you and Dylan, now I got to talk to Tatsuki. I haven't talked
Yeah.
to him much, but I love how you guys are thinking about this
Yeah. Yeah. It's been fun. Really good. Enjoyable conversation.
for sure. And if you want to
Definitely.
plug anything right now, like where can people find you? Where can they subscribe to your email? Where can they find all of Growth Army's products and services?
I would just plug my email list. So if you head over to my bio, it's Glenn Wrights one, and then you'll find it in there.
Awesome.
That'd be it.
Easy. I'll plug that down below. But
Yeah,
yeah, man, I
nice
really
chat.
appreciate you taking the time to do this. This was fun
Yeah, Angie, I really enjoyed this. It's a good conversation.
for sure. Well, thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Sick man, and you.